Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome here as Season 3 of the Dark Horse IndyCar Series rolls on. We are closing in on the season finale, and we make our final stop at a road course this season, race number 15 on the year at Silverstone. I'm Seth Cole, alongside of Matthew Rodriguez. And Matt,
Howdy.
we ended up having our last road course stop at Watkins Glen, where I said more than likely the track that every driver in the field be most familiar with. Even if you tested this week, I think it's safe to say here today at Silverstone is where drivers are going to be going in with the less amount of laps logged.
I mean, yeah, look, 18 turns, and that's kind of tough for someone. I'll openly state this as being an American who typically only runs on, American tracks, Watkins Glen, Sonoma, the tracks. It's hard going overseas to a track where you may have only seen it in TV, but you never wanted to run it in real life. Unfortunately, this is a kind of reality for some of these drivers where you're really going to see who's put in the hours this week, who at least knows and memorizes this track, because if you miss a breaking point, it is going to be costly here.
The last road courses we've been at this season, Road America, as mentioned, Watkins Glen, Circuit of the Americas. It's really been the same three guys up there inside of the podium every single time. Not always in the same order, but Alex Van de Sant, Robert Maleska III, and Matt Wagner. Do we see the same thing here today, or is there anybody that's kind of piqued your interest as a possible sleeper that might be able to get it done here today at Silverstone?
Man, I think I mention him almost every week, but I've got two guys in mind. I've got Eric Shouse. I mean, we saw how close he came at Watkins Glen. Almost really just a miscalculation on his pit stop. Got a little bit too competitive, overshot it, and that pretty much shot him in the foot for the rest of the race. Another guy, but I talk about every week, and I hope he finishes this week, has to be Gail Brooks. I mean, he cannot catch a break. I don't foresee him being in that top 5 run, the battle for the win, but I really just hope he has a clean race, puts together a good top 10.
It was funny because I ended up seeing pre-race Gail Brooks saying, I've got the track, I'm getting onto the course, and I don't know where I'm going. So obviously having to be a quick learner here today, and I'm sure that might be the case for a number of the drivers in this one tonight. 35 laps of racing, as it's been all season long, road course yellow. So there may be a local caution in one section of the track, but more than likely we're not going to see a full course yellows, which means, much like it's been at a lot of our other road courses, it's really going to come down to when these drivers decide to make that green flag pit stop, and really just how good or how bad the tire wear really is on whether or not coming to pit road one lap earlier than your competition is really going to gain you that track position.
More or less, this race is going to be more of kind of maintaining your strategy, racing yourself. You're not racing the track. You're not racing the competitors. If you've got one solid strategy, but you know is going to work, as long as you keep running your own race, you'll be fine. But hey, I mean, get someone who comes up next to you and starts racing you a little bit. Just don't throw away your strategy. Keep on track. That's going to be the main key.
Well, the last time we were at a road course, Alexander Van de Sant went to victory lane, and tonight at Silverstone, he's going to capture his second pole on the season. He's going to be starting alongside of Robert Maleska III, who, of course, is trying to chase a series-leading 10th trip to victory lane, found his 9th win last week when we were at Homestead Miami Speedway. Back in row 2 is where you're going to find Eric Shouse, who you mentioned has been really good at the road course as well. Almost pulled off that victory at Watkins Glen, if not for some fuel miscalculations. Jim Herrick going to line up in the 4th position, so be interesting to see how he does there. Kobe Moore and Nick DeGroot, the defending champion, going to make up row 3. How about DeGroot? That's a driver that you didn't really mention there when I asked about dark horse drivers. We know he's good at the road courses, but so far this season, the numbers just haven't been there to kind of put him in the category of a race win contender.
True, and to be honest, he hasn't had the best of starts at road courses, and that's really what shot him in the foot. So much about these road courses are about track position and where you're starting. So, I mean, the group was, I believe, back at Watkins Glen, he started outside the top 10 and had to fight his way back in. But by the time he fought his way back in, he had a nice few bumps and bruises on that car. So it's a thing of, now that he's somewhere near the top 5, I can easily see him being within a threat. But at least how his current performances at these road courses have been this season, I'm not too sure.
With only speedways to finish out the year after tonight's event, it'll be the final opportunity for drivers as well to utilize push-to-pass. They'll have 10 push-to-passes at the start of this race. It'll be interesting to see where they decide to use them and how early they decide to use them. Let's talk a little bit about Silverstone here. They're running the 18-corner, nearly 6-kilometer length track that the British Grand Prix would be running at here, that being equal to just about maybe a little over 3.5 miles in length. Matt, I'm going into this completely blind, as I said, never broadcasted a race at Silverstone, not really sure about how this track works. You've run some laps here, so what are some of the trouble spots that these drivers have to worry about today?
I mean, I don't know if I'd exactly say I ran at Silverstone. I've definitely crashed at Silverstone. But definitely some of the trouble spots has to be some of these flat corners here as there's a wreck on the front straightaway.
Immediately they're wrecking. That, I believe, might have been Jeff Hysong in the 18 that looped it around. Todd Schneider also facing the wrong way there on the front straightaway, and I think that's Covey Moore that's leaving the scene of the accident as well. So at least 2, 3, maybe 4 drivers involved there in an incident at the very drop of the green flag, but no full course yellow as Alex Van de Sant pulls away from Robert Maleska III.
You know, I was taking a little bit of a look back at what happened there on the start, and it looks like Covey may have just got a little bit too quick on the throttle, and the same thing happened behind him with Forsyth, and those two, they did a great job keeping it off the inside wall, but hooked it right back into the field, and that's what kind of set a lot of this off.
Well, you were talking about pre-broadcast the fact that it's kind of a deceiving racetrack and the fact that you want to get back to the throttle as soon as possible, but you put the power down and the rear tires don't always take.
See, that's the thing. I mean, at least when I was doing a few of my practice laps here, I mean, it was great on entry. It felt solid through the middle, and then it gives you that false confidence on exit where it makes you want to put the power down, and the moment you put the power down, it's saying, oh, well, I got no grip, so we can't go anywhere.
Well, if there's at least one bit of good news for those drivers back there like Moore and Schneider, it's their incident took place early. So they've got another 34 laps to be able to try and recover. As we know at the road courses, if you run into an early issue, you've got time to maybe be able to mount a comeback. If you have trouble in the second half of the race, especially near the end, pretty much your opportunity for a comeback is slim to none.
Pretty much, and I'm already looking here early. 2 people have already used push-to-passes here early in the race. Everyone is allotted 10 push-to-passes. Currently, it looks like Jimmy Drynan and Eric Shouse have been the quick 2 recipients of those on lap 1. So definitely, I think we ask this every race. Regarding push-to-passes, is it better to do them early or later on into the run? Because, I mean, early on, yes, you're all close together, and you have to be within 1 second to use that push-to-pass, at least 1 second within another car. But if you wait later in the race and use them, hey, you may have them in a tough situation, but if you use them early, maybe you can get a good track position.
Yeah, quite honestly, I think that one thing that we touched on back at Watkins Glen was the field's going to get really spread out. We know this. It's been the case at every road course stop we've had here this season. So if you're within striking distance of somebody at the initial drop of the green flag, that might be the time to be able to use at least maybe half of your push to passes. Take advantage of picking up that spot ahead of you while you can, because more than likely at the end of the race, you may be on an island by yourself, nobody in front, nobody behind, and then you're stuck with these push to passes and not really able to use them to gain anything.
I'll be the counter thought here where, yes, you obviously don't want to wait until late to have all 10 push to passes, but I could say at least saving 5 of them. Because again, your push to passes, you have to be within 1 second of another car. Now, that doesn't mean it has to be a lead lap car, but it can easily be a lap car here where, you know, hey, if I'm fighting for 3rd place and I have a lap car coming to me as Gary Corley goes off the track.
Gonna bring it back up onto the racing surface. I think that might have possibly been over around turn 10. No caution as he's going to drop back to 12th.
Just one more update on push to passes. I'm seeing Jimmy Drynan is kind of taking your advice here, man. He has been definitely using them up. Already down to 7 here in lap 3.
Right now in the 10th position, and he's within half a second. Oh, and as soon as we drop back to him, around goes that Dan Weldon tribute scheme. as he was trying to get ninth place from Eric Peterson. He's going to lose a spot to Nicholas Winook for his troubles, and now here comes Gary Corley, who was looped around just about half a lap ago. He's going to challenge for a spot inside of the top 10. Oh, and again goes Dryden around.
Spinning.
Wow. Oh, and now Corley goes around.
I keep telling you, these corners, again, and I'll say it again. The main thing about this is not one of those tracks where you have, familiar knowledge, or a lot of these drivers have familiar knowledge yet. I mean, again, most of these drivers, you got to remember Watkins Glen. Just about everyone has turned at least one lap of Watkins Glen, as Matt Wagner looks like he overshot the S's there.
Absolutely did. I thought for a brief moment he might be going way too far, but fortunately he was in one of those areas where there was a little bit of a runoff, and wow, Gail Brooks gonna tuck in front and make sure that he swings that car wide through the turn, able to pick up that 7th position. I'll let you continue on with your thought there.
Yeah, but I've actually lost my train of thought, but the main thing is a lot of these guys, Watkins Glen, yes, you have at least turned one lap at, regardless of whatever layout it is, generally what the corners are going to be, where to brake, everything else. Now with Silverstone, these are very popular. This track is very popular for the F1 crowd, for the GT or Grand Touring crowd, those kind of cars. Now, if you come from more kind of a stock car-ish background, maybe a dirt car-ish background, this track will be entirely foreign to you. You will not know what's going on. And that's the main thing, where a lot of these drivers, you may need to put in more practice hours than someone like Robert Miletsko, Nick DeGroot, where, listen, they're experienced road course racers. They know what they're doing. So even if you do put them on a track they're unfamiliar with, they'll generally have an idea of what they're doing.
I'm going to ask you, based on what we just saw there with Jimmy Dryden and Gary Corley, now obviously you talk about the experience coming into play, but I have to wonder too, a lot of drivers with early spins here, I know that tire heat plays a big factor into the amount of grip you're going to have, especially going into a braking zone, can play into the wheel hopping on the entry into a corner. With those early spins, would that heat up those rear tires enough that next couple of corners it just feels like the car's skating on ice?
Realistically, I'm not really worried about the rear tires as much as I am the front tires. Honestly, I'm scared more of locking up the front tires here, because again, the moment I lock up these front tires and pretty much just start churning through them and burning them, and this car is going to plow through each one of these corners without even caring what we're doing. So the main thing is I got to preserve the front tires first. Now, the rear tires are definitely still important, because that's what helps me get the power down off the corner. But front tires, at least steering first, power later.
Robert Miletsko III still keeping Alex Van de Sant within striking distance. The gap right now about 0.7 of a second. Looking here at a good...
Dryden goes back around and misses the wall.
It's the same corner I believe that Gary Corley had an issue with about 2 laps ago, just around where the pit road entry would be. I think that's over in turn 15, a very wide sweeping right-hander.
Talk about Jimmy Dryden. He's already down to 4 push-to-passes. And that's the thing where I don't even know if he really wanted to use that many already, but it just was happening. These spins, he kind of had to keep using them to keep up his position. But again, that's kind of delaying a bigger issue where it can dig you in a larger hole than you expect.
We had a couple of drivers, I think, that started this race from pit road. Kobe Moore in the 15 and Todd Schneider in the 86. I believe both, I'm sorry, actually correction. It was Schneider in the 86 and Jeff Heisong in the 18. They started this race from pit road. Heisong right now in the 11th position, Schneider back in 15th place and currently 1 lap down. Also, the
Gail
76
Brooks runs wide.
Doesn't spin it out though, as this has actually been a good battle here with Forsyth, Wagner, and Brooks for 6th, 7th, and 8th. But Jim Brooks, I didn't see the 76 run into any issues. However, he is currently scored 5 laps down on pit road, and it's looking like it's an extended stay on pit lane. Don't know if he got involved in an early wreck back on lap 1 or not. Might have been involved in that.
Heisong! Heisong, it looks like Forsyth might have just went around. I definitely know Heisong went around. Well, Winook. It was Nicholas Winook.
Yep, 33. Gets the thing refired. Jeff Heisong had actually worked his way up there inside of the top 10. Going to lose a couple of positions now, back to 11th place. A lot of drivers finding issues early on here in this one. That's about 7 or 8 drivers that have spun up to this point, and we're only 6 laps in.
Well, I mean, I'm kind of looking at the Winook kind of spin here. I understand what happened, where he was looking ahead and he saw the 18 kind of sitting in the apex of the corner, and he's like, "Uh-oh, what am I going to do?" And again, if you really try to rapidly apply the brakes in these and turn, truth be told, these cars can't really do 2 things at once. So that's kind of the perfect recipe to just kind of get the back end loose and just kind of spin it around.
Battle for the lead is still there. It's been fluctuating between 0.6 of a second to 0.8 of a second between Van de Sant and Maleska, and just watching their lap times as well, they've been almost mirroring each other here for these first 5 laps. So I think for these two, it's going to come down to maybe the game of cat and mouse. Boy, if I could say words, that'd be great. Between who's going to come to pit road first and who is not, in terms of possibly gaining or, in some cases, maybe losing track position. I mean, right now, both of these drivers still running their fastest lap times. Van de Sant last time by 1:39.640.
Absolutely. I kind of wonder if Maleska is just kind of toying with him a little bit, or just trying to figure out where he's running, because it could be a thing of maybe just Robert's not 100% confident in running this track here at the moment. He's just trying to, I mean, obviously, it looks like Alex got this figured out, so he's trying to learn from him.
I believe when we talked with Robert last week after his victory at Homestead, he said that he hadn't logged any laps here at Silverstone, so you can bet he was probably very busy this week trying to get familiar with this road course. And yes, to your point, might be a little bit of hesitation and maybe trying to follow in the tire tracks of someone like Alex Van de Sant, who was fastest in practice. Obviously, looks like he's very comfortable here. We're actually going to take a lap around Silverstone on board our race leader, and I think the thing that we really need to focus on the most here is the hand movement, because if you see a lot of jerking to the left or right, that's a driver that's not really that comfortable going into these corners. Not really sure what the race car is going to do, but right now just seeing very smooth movement of the steering wheel here for Van de Sant.
And you got to think here, I mean, really, realistically, if Maleska really wanted to get up to Van de Sant, or Van de Sant really wanted to pull away, I mean, they both have 10 push passes left, but they're just kind of feeling this one out here. And again, there's still a lot left running this race. I don't think it's go time yet.
Right now, if we're looking for the best battle on the racetrack, we've got the battle for the lead, and we've got a battle for the 3rd position. Eric Shouse, Jim Herrick, and Nick DeGroot right now separated by 3 seconds. We'll drop back to that battle momentarily. It looks like it might actually be a battle for 4th place between Jim Herrick and the one of Nick DeGroot. That's now almost closed down to just a full second between those 2 drivers. You talk about the drivers not having a whole lot of familiarity with this track. We noticed those placards off to the right going into that corner, giving you an idea of just how close you're getting to the braking zone. Are drivers using those as guidelines, or do they maybe brake a little bit sooner just to make sure that thing is going to whoa up?
Truth be told, this kind of demonstrates how bad of a road racer I am, but I mean, I always take those boards as almost a challenge where, I mean, I could brake at the 150, but let me see if I can take it all the way to the 50. But that's a perfect guide for some of these drivers where, right, so I can kind of ask my teammates, I can kind of relate to my teammates. If I'm someone like Covey Moore, if I'm someone like Nick DeGroot, if I'm not running the fastest corner as someone else, I'll be asking, hey, where are you braking? You're braking at the 150, you're braking around the 100. Well, no, I'm braking somewhere around 125-ish.
Jim Herrick's holding down that 4th position, and pretty good road racer in his own right. He's only run 3 of the previous road courses so far this season, but back at Road America, he finished 8th. Coda, he finished 6th, and then got his best road course finish a few weeks ago when we were at Watkins Glen, finishing in 4th place. So holding down a top 5 again here today.
Absolutely. Just trying to figure out, Matt Wagner just used a push to pass. I think he's trying to kind of close the distance on Gail Brooks. And before we curse him again, definitely nice to see Gail Brooks running a good top 10 here. He typically isn't as strong on these road courses, so it's nice to see him kind of up here, at least fighting in a top 10.
And right in the middle of a bunch of the guys we've talked about, how about 6th place running Craig Forsyth? Of course, we are about 3 weeks removed from when these drivers will cap off the season with the Indianapolis 500. Forsythe, the defending winner of that race, and obviously would love to be a back-to-back Indy 500 champion, but I'm certain that he also would like to be heading into that race as a former winner this season, still searching for his first trip to victory lane here in Season 3.
Well, you got to remember, we obviously have the Indy 500 to kick off the regular IndyCar season here, but there also is that special event where it's the double header, the Indy 500 and the Coke 600. I believe Indy 500 is taking place on a Saturday and the Coke 600 is taking place on a Sunday. It's definitely going to be kind of a marathon event, at least in my opinion.
And no doubt about it. You got to wonder, dependent on who takes part in one or both, just how exhausted they're going to be after the first one to get themselves mentally prepared for the second one. Both very long endurance races. That battle for the lead has now seemed to open up just the least little bit. That last time by about a tenth quicker was Alex Van de Sant. He now has about 1.3 seconds back to Robert Maleska III. So 35 laps here. A lot of our road courses this season have been 35 laps in length. Road America was 35 laps. COTA was 35 laps. And it kind of seemed like basically it was a one-stop race for everybody, and they would split it right in half, come to pit road somewhere in the lap 17 to 19 vicinity.
And see, you always kind of have that options, but everyone's going with the same option that you just kind of mentioned. The other two options are really about running the race backwards, about saying, all right, well, let me go ahead and I can either do my short pit now, and I can go ahead and go on that long stint, or I can reverse it around and say, all right, let me go ahead and go on my long stint now, or let me just take one final pit stop, maybe 5 laps left to go, or however many laps left to go, and continue on with the race. Or just like you said, hey, we're just going to hit it right dead in the middle and kind of run with the same fresh tires that they have.
Well, right now, if we're going based off of the leaders, 10 laps into this race, and your top two just ran laps that were about 0.4 of a second slower than their fastest laps. And I'm not necessarily certain, just based off of that, if there is a super huge amount of tire fall off, which would play into either one of these two drivers trying to leapfrog the other with coming to pit road maybe a lap sooner.
I mean, I can think it's easy, and I try to see who's off the track there. It looks like Jimmy Drynan again. But realistically, Maleska and Van de Sant, they're extremely good road racers. They know what they're doing. And it's a thing of, hey, we're not going to go necessarily go out and beat up our tires. Obviously, I think this race is really going to be decided off of pit strategy. And then, hey, whoever's kind of losing out on the losing end of pit strategy, that's when we're really going to see pushed passes being used. That's when we're going to see them start to go a little bit harder pushing the issue.
We are closing in on a third of the way through this race. Pit stops may be looming somewhere in the next 7 to 8 laps. And it's Alex Van de Sant leading Robert Maleska III, Eric Shouse, Jim Herrick, and Nick DeGroot. That is your top 5. We're going to step aside for a quick commercial break. You're not going to miss a thing as we're going to go FRN side by side here at Silverstone.
It's a road few dare to travel. A journey filled with danger and unpredictability. So why do we traverse this road? Why do we take such a gamble? Because if we don't try, we'll never know what we could have achieved. That's why we strap in, rev up, and fix our focus on the ultimate prize. Because the reward is well worth the risk. The 2021 NNSCRA Daytona 500, Saturday, February 20th, exclusively on Flatout Racing Network.
ETE Reman is the world's best remanufacturer of transmissions for import and domestic cars and trucks. Based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, our customers are repair shops, auto parts stores, dealerships, and distributors. And with 6 nationwide warehouses, we're where and when you need us. So when you're looking for a transmission that is like new, only better, instill confidence and install ETE Reman.
this a road few dare to travel, a journey filled with danger and unpredictability. So why do we traverse this road? Why do we take such a gamble? Because if we don't try, we'll never know what we could have achieved. That's why we strap in, rev up, and fix our focus on the ultimate prize. Because the reward is well worth the risk.
You saw it live, the 317 of Alex Van de Sant coming to pit road, nearing the conclusion of lap 12. Seems a little bit early for him to be hitting pit lane. You gotta wonder what the strategy is here, Matt.
Realistically, I'm kind of wondering if he's running the race backwards a little bit and thinking, hey, let me go ahead and just take my short run now, and then go ahead and get fresh tires, load it full of fuel, and see if we can make it all the way to the end. However, it could be a thing of maybe they just don't have enough fuel to make it in one stop. Maybe it's a two-stop race.
Jimmy Drynan is in. He was already put a lap down. Craig Forsyth comes down this time. Gail Brooks in the 71 has also hit pit lane. So it's not just one driver going with this strategy. A few drivers on the lead lap and up inside the top 10 adopting the same strategy.
I mean, you know the game, Seth. Definitely follow the leader, and that's the most important thing now. Milecka is kind of that odd man out. So you're going to be wondering, again, is the undercut really going to help, my apologies, Van de Sant, kind of keep his lead or maybe extend his lead? And again, is staying out longer really going to cost Milecka that much?
With coming to pit road, Robert Milecka III going to be out in front for the first time today. First 12 laps were led by our pole sitter Alex Van de Sant. Eric Shouse now inherits second, Jim Herrick third, and Nick DeGroot up to fourth. Just to give you an idea of the pace that Milecka... Oh, this is not good for Milecka. Is coming down here to pit road. He had to whoop a little bit more for Gary Corley, who was just ahead of him coming onto pit lane. So you got to wonder if that might lose the 91 a little bit of time.
Easily, because I'd say Milecka could probably push it a little bit further in. I believe he could push it all the way up into that white line that kind of past the cones. So he didn't have to slam on the brakes that quickly. Obviously, with Corley going a little bit slow, he had to blow up.
Snail's pace of 35 miles per hour down pit road. Eric Shouse looks like he will be staying out, so he will be inheriting the lead. But again, what I was going to say, just to show that the pace that Van de Sant and Milecka III put on early on in this race, Van de Sant, but all those other drivers stayed out. He still came out in the top 5 in 5th position, and right now he's scored in the 2nd position. So it just shows the blistering lap times the 317 and the 91 put on in the first 10 laps.
And that's the thing of they were able to be so consistent, but it definitely shows, hey, there is fall off.
So Milecka III, Jim Herrick, and Nick DeGroot were down that time. Matt Wagner in the 99 has also hit pit road, and just now hitting pit road entry, the 36 of Eric Peterson, which means we would be waiting on 3 drivers to come down pit road that are still on the lead lap to complete this cycle. Eric Shouse, Covey Moore, and Jeff Hysong, the last that need to come on to the pit road. And you know, this is where we're going to have to kind of wait and see. As you mentioned, drivers might be kind of looking at this race from back to front, but you know, let's speculate that maybe 12 to 14 laps is the furthest these drivers can make it. If that's the case, then they've still got one more trip to pit road here in their future.
That's the thing. It's really kind of going to be that if they have to come down one more time, it's the guessing game of, all right, do I come down as soon as I think I can make it, put on fresh tires and kind of use that fresh tire advantage and run all the way out of my stint? Or do I just kind of run it until I feel that I'm losing time by staying out, coming in, throwing on new tires and just enough gas so you carry a lighter fuel load but fresher tires?
It is the second longest road course race of the season, equaling about 126 miles in length. The longest we ran this year was at Road America, which was a tick over 140 miles in length. And Road America, to my knowledge, was just a one-stop race. So we'll have to wait and see if that'll be the case here, as there's going to still be 20 laps to go when Van de Sant comes around and hits the start-finish line, inheriting the lead back after Eric Shouse came onto pit road. The gap before the pit stops began was only about 1.3 seconds from Van de Sant back to Robert Maleska III. It is now almost 3.5 seconds. And remember, the 317 came to pit road 1 lap sooner than the 91 did. So, was this a case of the ability of leapfrogging and having the fresh tires, or do we translate that all the way back to what we were talking about, the very slow entry to pit road Robert Maleska III had when he came up on the lap machine of Gary Corley?
I'm going to say it's an accumulation of everything, which obviously, hey, Van de Sant got the jump on Maleska here because he identified, hey, I'm being ran down by Robert. I need to make a change. So he hit pit road first, kind of set that precedent, got that undercut going. Once he got the undercut, he was able to just drive all the way to the line at his pace. He was the only guy on pit road. He just had to focus on hitting his marks. He was good to go. I mean, we can even see it in his pit lane and his box time. He got out about a good almost a second earlier than what Maleska was able to do on pit lane and box. But you got to remember, when Maleska was coming in on pit lane, he did have to slow it up for Corley. He wasn't able to run it that far in. And you got to think, hey, when you're following someone on a pit lane, it kind of throws you off a little bit because you're wondering, hey, where is his pit stall? Where is he pitting? And easily can kind of block the view of your pit stall, maybe makes you slow up, pull out of the way so you don't hit him. It's those little things that cost you seconds here and there, but it just penalizes you so great on pit.
Pit stops complete after Jeff Hysong brought his number 18 to pit road. So it'll be Van de Sant the leader, Maleska the third in second, Shouse in third, Herrick fourth, Nick de Groot fifth, Craig Forsyth, Matt Wagner, Covey Moore, Eric Peterson, and Gail Brooks complete the top 10. They are all on the lead lap. Gail Brooks, however, is only about maybe 11 seconds away from being put a lap down. Jeff Hysong is a lap down in 11th. Gary Corley also off the lead lap. And, well, I was going to mention him in 12th. He may end up losing that position. No, he's running way farther ahead of Jimmy Drynan, so he'll still remain in 12th place. Drynan right now, 13th. Todd Schneider in 14th. All those drivers are -1. 2 drivers still sit on pit road. Nicholas Winook has been on pit lane for about 16 minutes so far. He is 10 laps down to the leader in 15th. Jim Brooks came to pit road back on the completion of lap 1, has not left his stall since. Right now, he is scored last car in 16th position. And there you saw on that straightaway shot with Van de Sant coming off the final corner, just up ahead. Not only is he close to catching up to Gail Brooks, but it looked like there was another lap machine there. Might have been the 86 of Todd Schneider in the vicinity.
Realistically, I'm looking here at biggest losers. Todd Schneider just went around the corner. Oh,
right in front of the leader. Whoa!
I was going back over with kind of biggest movers and biggest losers. Todd Schneider had to be one of the biggest losers in this race. Already lost 4 positions from his starting spot in 10th. And, I mean, pretty much when it rains, it pours.
That was a close call for the race leader. Very fortunate that there was enough runoff there for him to be able to use, because if he had gone maybe another 10 feet forward, he would have been in the sand trap.
That's kind of that heads-up awareness. And, come and look at it, it doesn't look like Maleska actually managed to gain that much from it.
No, you're right. The gap only closed up to maybe 3 seconds, so he gained about, 4/10, half a second in that incident. So for Van de Sant, while it obviously wasn't the way he wanted to go through that corner, he still made it work.
To be honest, the biggest thing that I do to Alex is kind of throw him off his line, throw him off his game a little bit, where, hey, past 10 laps I've been running just flat out, not worrying about anyone else in my way. But obviously, you have kind of that one incident that throws you off your lane, maybe throws you off your game a little bit, and it kind of gets you out of that rhythm where, hey, you're spending the last 10 laps in autopilot, and now you're kind of hyper aware of everything, trying to see if there's going to be another car spinning in your path. So it definitely was one of those mind games that plays with you.
You talked about it, Matt, earlier on about saving those push-to-passes to maybe use with a slower or lap machine. Robert Maleska III did just that moments ago as he was behind Todd Schneider. Used one of his push-to-passes to try and see if he can close up the distance between himself and Van de Sant. Both the 317 and the 91 had all 10 of their push-to-passes left when they completed that first round of pit stops. Maleska has used 2 since his pit stop.
That's the thing where he's kind of realizing how dire this is, where, listen, he's not gaining any time on Van de Sant, even with him having that mistake, where it's obviously Alex knows something that he doesn't, and that pit stop really hurt him from being within that distance to be able to use push passes, kind of track him down from a second back. So he's obviously taking advantage of any lap cars that are kind of within his 1 second mark.
Talked about the fact that with us more than likely not having a full course yellow here this evening at all, that it was really going to get spread out, especially when we hit the green flag pit stops. Right now, our closest battle on track is over 1.5 seconds between Eric Shouse in third and Jim Herrick in fourth. Right now, 1.8 seconds between those two drivers. So now it basically comes down to, rather than driver versus driver, it comes down to driver versus car versus track.
That's the thing where, realistically, for Van de Sant right now, he is his own worst enemy. Honestly, if he starts kind of trying to push a little bit too hard, or he just kind of loses focus, he can easily miss a braking zone. Again, the car will step out on you if you're not prepared, or if you overrun the track limits. I mean, again, you can kind of hit these rumble strips a little bit, but that grass is slick. You will easily send that car right around.
Just taking a look real quickly here at the point standings coming into tonight. Some notable names that are not in the field here this evening. Charles Teed, our winner from Iowa, 4th in points. Victor Santos, 8th in the stands, and Dylan Moskowitz, 10th in points. Now, obviously, at this point in time, it's easily looking like Robert Maleska III is going to lock up this championship, but there are still spots in the standings that are up for grabs. Still some great battles that are going on from second place on down, and with a couple of drivers deciding not to take to the winding curves of Silverstone here tonight, it's going to make things interesting down the home stretch at Pocono, Michigan, and of course the season finale at Indianapolis.
Well, kind of shedding light on something that we really haven't been following that greatly this season has to be team standings. I mean, obviously, Tristan Trojan just kind of has run away with the team championship here by over 130 points. But, you know, if you go back past that, there's a really tough battle for second with Speedy Snails and Factory Backed. Obviously, Factory Backed not having the greatest this season, but they have been able to pull out a win.
Also got LMCgear.com. They're kind of in the conversation there as well. And right now they've got you got one of their drivers actually running that quite well in this race in Jim Herrick, holding down that 4th position for LMCgear.com.
You know, I'm actually going to make the joke. I mean, I'm seeing Sky High Motorsports down there, and I'm thinking like Low Ground Motorsports here. They are not having the greatest season.
Nope, not at all. As we are now past the halfway point in this race. I was just kind of thinking of something here, and you can weigh in on this. I mentioned here at the top of the program, it's the last road course stop on the season. And while that's true...
Oh, but let's go overran the track.
Well, looks like he's able to still keep it going. I noticed just moments ago, too, Van de Sant drove over one of the rumble strips maybe a little further than he wanted to. All right, so I'm going to put the point I was just going to bring up in my back pocket here. I'll save that for later. I'm going to ask you a different question here, just in the fact of what we just saw right there. I mean, we talked about the fact now it's driver versus car versus track. Is there a way you can get into your own head and think, can I do something a little bit different to either gain time on the driver I'm trying to run down or gain time on the guy I'm trying to run away from, and then make those mental mistakes?
Easily. I mean, here's the thing. Right now, you kind of have to look at it from Maletska's perspective here, where he's kind of racing alone here. He doesn't have any cars around him. It's just him and the 18 corners in front of him. And it's a thing of where your mind just kind of starts playing games on you, and you start to see that relative in your bottom right-hand corner saying, well, he's gaining time on me. He's already pulled away 3-4 seconds. That's a little bit of concern. What is he doing that I'm not? And you're going to start experimenting, going around the track, running different lines, but again, when you start focusing on that more, it really throws you off your game. It will make you slower because you're trying different things and you won't see an immediate result. So you start to swap over to another line and another line and another line, and it's an endless battle.
And the thing that probably plays the most into you experimenting more and more is what we see up on the top left of our screen. The ticker with the laps going down lap after lap means your opportunity to be able to gain said ground continues to slip away by the second. riding on board here with Jim Herrick. There's a couple of drivers that still have all 10 push-to-passes available to them. Race leader Van de Sant is one. Jim Herrick is another. I got a feeling, though, he may start using his push-to-passes sooner rather than later because the last couple of laps, he's been running about a half second faster than Eric Shouse. He's less than 2 seconds behind him. If he gets up and gets just a sniff of the draft with that 72, he will definitely be using some push-to-passes to make this a battle for third place.
Thing where obviously some of the guys as earlier to use, that's why I always say it's a great time to have kind of a balance of, hey, you use maybe 5 at the beginning of the race and 5 at the end of the race. 5 when you're at the beginning part of the race, we've got so many people around you. That's really the part where you can start making up positions. Then maybe 5 to keep when you kind of run across an occasional lap car, or again, even a lead lap car comes around you. You can still use a push to pass because you're within 1 second of you.
Well, up to this point, all 16 drivers that took the green flag were still scored in the race. We have officially had our first retiree. Gary Corley has had enough of Silverstone here tonight after multiple spins. He has DNF'd from this evening's event. Looks like he will drop more than likely to 14th place in tonight's finishing results.
That's the thing, and I kind of want to take this moment to kind of mention about next season's schedule, and it's definitely a little bit of a saddening point. It looks like someone actually overran the track up there. I'm trying to figure out who that is. To be honest, it may have been. Actually, I don't know who that was. It's kind of a tanned car. Oh, looks like Eric Peterson just went off the track. He just spun around.
Looks to get the car refired. Got an oncoming driver there. And looks like that driver will get around. Yes, it was. You're right. That was the leader, Van de Sant. My goodness, you'd think at a road course the race leader would be safe. That's the second time he's had a driver either spin out or come back on the track right in front of him in the last 10 laps.
I mean, it just kind of goes to show that you can't really go to sleep at these tracks. I mean, you can't just put it on cruise control and just kind of rest back. Because again, right now, Van de Sant's not really going all out, but you can easily tell that he's just not kind of laying back and putting it on cruise control because, again, you can't get comfortable where, listen, you can have a bad pit stop, you can overrun your box, you can speed on pit road, and that can easily kind of throw your day away.
Just saw Jeff Heisong also have an issue there, spin his race car around, gets the thing refired, and drives away. Todd Schneider in the 86 just came to pit road, and he was on pit lane the same lap as Alex Van de Sant was when Van de Sant made his first pit stop. I don't know if this was a regularly scheduled stop for the 86 or not. If it was, then that says to me that none of these drivers can make it the rest of the way, that they are going to have to pit at least one more time.
I think I want to see a little bit more evidence before I say that. I mean, here's the thing, if I start spinning around that much, I think I want a new set of tires too.
All right, so I'm going to take this opportunity to quickly go back to the question I was going to ask before we end up seeing our 2 race leaders have those little bit of miscues. As I mentioned, this is going to be the final road course configured track these drivers will be at this season. But we're going next week to Pocono. And even NASCAR drivers have said, it drives a lot like approaching the corners is a lot like driving a road course. We've seen a lot of drivers that are good at the NASCAR circuit road courses do well there. Is this an opportunity, you think, for guys like Van de Sant, Maleska III, Shouse, Herrick, Wagner, guys that are really good at the road courses to maybe be able to eye Pocono as an opportunity to be able to pick up a speedway win, but be able to put their road course expertise to the test as well?
I mean, to be perfectly honest, I'm looking at Pocono and I'm kind of thinking some unusual names. I'm thinking Eric Shouse. I mean, again, he hasn't had a win, but he's been good at ovals. He's been good at road courses. That's really a great place to kind of smash them together. Now, in the IndyCar's Pocono is more or less kind of a weird super speedway of sorts where turn 2, you can't really go dual wide and kind of have that nice runoff space that you expect. And turn 3 is definitely kind of a slower corner. But turn 1 is what everyone's kind of focusing on, how fast you can kind of sling it in there. Covey Moore is another kind of a name that comes to mind. He really had been in a hot streak before this week. We kind of expected him to kind of have a little bit of a drop off because his prior road course experiences, but definitely he's another name that kind of pops up who's been kind of riding a hot streak that could perform well at Pocono.
Obviously, we had drivers that we knew were going to be really good here today just based off of their previous numbers at road courses, but I think a number of drivers came into Silverstone today just looking to survive and get the most points they possibly could. Robert Maleska III, after he had that issue, the last couple of laps he has been slower than Van de Sant, but that last time by, he picked it up by 3/10. He is now about 3.5 seconds behind Alex Van de Sant, and if indeed these drivers do not have to pit for the remainder of this race, it is time to go for that 91 machine, as we are now at 12 laps remaining here tonight at Silverstone. We're going to step aside for another commercial break, and then we'll be bringing it back here for the finish, as you're watching Flatout Racing Network's coverage here from Silverstone for Season 3 of the Dark Horse IndyCar Series, presented by HyperX.
It's a road few dare to travel, a journey filled with danger and unpredictability. So why do we traverse this road? Why do we take such a gamble? Because if we don't try, we'll never know what we could have achieved. That's why we strap in, rev up, and fix our focus on the ultimate prize. Because the reward is well worth the risk. The 2021 NNSCRA Daytona 500, Saturday, February 20th, exclusively on Flatout Racing Network.
ETE Reman is the world's best remanufacturer of transmissions for import and domestic cars and trucks. Based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, our customers are repair shops, auto parts stores, dealerships, and distributors. And with 6 nationwide warehouses, we're where and when you need us. So when you're looking for a transmission that is like new, only better, instill confidence and install ETE Reman.
It's a road few dare to travel, a journey filled with danger and unpredictability. So why do we traverse this road? Why do we take such a gamble? Because if we don't try, we'll never know what we could have achieved. That's why we strap in, rev up, and fix our focus on the ultimate prize. Because the reward is well worth the risk. The 2021 NNSCRA Daytona 500, Saturday, February 20th, exclusively on Flatout Racing Network.
ETE Reman is the world's best remanufacturer of transmissions for import and domestic cars and trucks. Based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, our customers are repair shops, auto parts stores, dealerships, and distributors. And with 6 nationwide warehouses, we're where and when you need us. So when you're looking for a transmission that is like new, only better, instill confidence and install ETE Reman.
It's a road few dare to travel, a journey filled with danger and unpredictability. So why do we traverse this road? Why do we take such a gamble? Because if we don't try, we'll never know what we could have achieved. That's why we strap in, rev up, and fix our focus on the...
Well, you saw it happen live there on FRN Side by Side. Final pit stop of the day for all of these drivers. The latest of those, Robert Maleska III. He's now come off of pit road, and he has closed up the gap here, Matt. It's now about 2 seconds.
Oh, Matt Wagner!
Spinner right in front of the leaders. Matt Wagner facing 90 degrees the wrong way. Fortunately, it was in a wide sweeping left-hander. The leaders were able to get around him, but it's now less than 2.5 seconds, 2.2 officially, between Van de Sant and Maleska III, and Maleska's got those one-lap fresher tires.
That's the thing. We were kind of talking about that under the commercial break of, what could Maleska do to kind of close the distance up? And we were kind of saying, like, man, it would take a miracle for Maleska to kind of gain back up a lot of the seconds that he had. But, he beat him on pit lane time and box time. Obviously, staying out a few extra laps may have let him take a little bit less fuel. May have took maybe 2 tires. I don't know.
Yeah, beat him so well on pit lane time. You actually were questioning before we came back on whether or not he might have gotten a speeding penalty that he came in so hot. But apparently, he is good to go and trying to see if he can reel in the 317. For Van de Sant, he's looking for his second win on the season. His only win so far at the road course of Watkins Glen. For Robert Maleska III, on what's a championship season for him, he is looking for his 10th trip to victory lane. And it's going to be 8 laps to settle it out between these two in just a moment. They just crossed the start-finish line there. The gap, 2.6 seconds between those two, as a couple of other drivers just hitting pit lane to finish out their cycle of pit stops. Actually, I believe... whoa!
Todd Schneider
Contact
kind of
there.
ran a little bit.
That was almost a wreck. Was that Schneider? I think that,
that was Todd
almost got
Schneider.
into him.
Yeah,
Yikes.
definitely kind of. And that's the biggest thing here. Of some of these lap cars, the leader's just kind of. I know he's not actually saying it, but he's just kind of screaming in his head like, "And be predictable. I just need a solid line around you." And I can kind of see where that complaint comes from Schneider. Obviously he picked the lane. Oh, Van de Sant span around.
Oh boy, that just lost him the lead. Maleska's going to go around him. I'm having flashbacks of Coda here, Matt, when Van de Sant was leading in that race and looped it around off the final corner with less than 10 to go.
But what did we talk about? Racing yourself. And that's the thing where, hey, Van de Sant got scared. Obviously he saw Maleska there. He was 2 seconds behind him. That's a little bit of a concern. But it's a thing of you're pushing way too hard.
Well, he has now dropped back to 5 seconds behind Maleska. Maleska had the advantage on fresher tires, and
I just
now
heard Matt Wagner say over the chat as as Van de Sant passed, "Go get him, big boy."
Well, Van de Sant on our telemetry is ticking away the interval. That time by in just those couple of corners, he gained about 0.4 of a second. And we'll see. It's 7 laps. Is 7 laps enough time? I think right now for Van de Sant, he's got to put down the best lap times he's put down all day long. He's going to have traffic there to deal with in the form of Todd Schneider. Schneider trying to get out of the way.
That's the thing of you kind of caught him in a really bad spot twice.
He can see the leader. That much is clear as we saw right there with that camera shot, but can he get to him is the question. I'm watching very interestingly up at our telemetry right now in terms of lap times. He's got fresh tires underneath him. I want to see if maybe Van de Sant, on the mission he's on right now, if maybe he might be his fastest lap of the day.
Realistically, Maleska needs to go right after this race, go buy himself a lottery ticket. He's got an amazing gift there.
Definitely did, as he has about 5 seconds and 0.3 between himself and the 317. We'll compare lap times this next time around, as it will be 6 to go and Maleska hits the start-finish line. Eric Shouse holding down 3rd, Jim Herrick in 4th, and Nick DeGroot in 5th. That top 5 really has not changed. in the last 20-25 laps, with the exception of the lead change we just saw moments ago with Maleska moving up to first and Van de Sant falling back to second.
I mean, it's kind of hard pressed to say, but definitely Van de Sant's been the dominant car of the day. I mean, he has been flawless up until that point.
See as they come to the start finish line this time. Lap time comparison: 1:39.0 for Maleska the third, 1:39.7 for Van de Sant. So he was 7/10 slower than the 91 machine. So he lost a bit of ground that time. It still maintains about 5.2 seconds between himself and Maleska the third. And the thing right now that is not on his side is time and laps. Only 6 more circuits around Silverstone.
That's the thing where obviously both these drivers have the clock ticking in their head. Maleska is thinking, man, I cannot afford any of these mistakes that I was having earlier trying to chase down Van de Sant. And Van de Sant's jumping up and down like, man, sure you don't want to get a little bit loose out of these corners?
Well, I mean, if we go back to Coda, remember these two had a very spirited battle in that one, and when Van de Sant spun out, Maleska kind of waited up for him, wanted to make a race out of it. He's not waiting for him here today, at least at this point in time. He continues to grow the gap, now 5.4 seconds between those two.
You know, I think the big difference between here and Coda, because that may be on the minds of some of the guys here, where, yeah, he did wait up, but the reason he waited up for Coda, because really Van de Sant and Maleska were right next to each other the entire time, and really what kind of got Van de Sant out there was because a lap car kind of came around and forced Van de Sant into a really bad move.
Well, not only that, but you mentioned the fact that Silverstone's not going to be on the schedule next season, so it may be the only opportunity for a driver to be able to win here at this road course in the Dark Horse IndyCar Series. And Maleska, who of course is trying to pad up statistics, also wants to add Silverstone winner to those list of accolades.
Absolutely. But it kind of hangs in the back of your head that, yeah, you kind of want the whenever here's the thing, like if you do decide to come back to Silverstone in maybe season 5, since the season 4 schedule is posted, maybe season 5, season 6, I mean, you want that kind of prestige of hey, I mean, last time they decided to race at Silverstone, guess who won? Or guess who dominated this race? That's kind of the ego pushes that I prefer.
And get those bragging rights heading into the next race if it ends up coming up on a future schedule. Absolutely. 4 laps to go as the 91 hits the start-finish line. Gap has closed up. That's going to have to close up by a lot more than it has. You've got currently 5 seconds between Alex Van de Sant, Robert Maleska III. To ask a driver to close up a full second every single lap, that might be asking a little too much. Coming down right now to Robert Maleska III having to make a mistake, and really outside of maybe a couple of corners where he overdrove them, but not to the extent where he would wreck or spin, that 91's pretty much been flawless today.
And that's the thing where Maleska has done a really good job of trying to limit mistakes. Not saying he has been mistake-free today. We've definitely seen a few times where he has overrun the track and has pushed a little bit too hard, but it's kind of the thing of he's in the right place at the right time, limited all of his mistakes today, where, listen, when he had mistakes, they weren't that big, and they really weren't in a position where, hey, it was do or die. And unfortunately with Van de Sant, he was the same way. He'd been flawless all day until, hey, just not fun of around.
And how about this? Robert Maleska III, 32 laps into this race, just ran his fastest lap, a 1:38.923.
You got to wonder, really, if Robert Maleska can kind of follow this up next season.
Yeah, there's no doubt that he is going to be a driver with a bullseye on his back for everybody, just with the dominant season he has had so far and may continue to have here down the home stretch. Of course, has the championship locked up, 214 points over Van de Sant coming into this race. He leads in wins with 9. He's looking for win 10 on the season, 9 poles on the year, 12 top 5s and 13 top 10s. I mean, that is a season that you can hang your hat on. But to your point, a lot of pressure then the following season to see if you can match up to the accolade you had here in Season 3.
I mean, we definitely kind of seen a resurgence as of late from Nick DeGroot, where it looks like he kind of got his early season jitters kind of sorted out easily. I'm thinking Eric Shouse again, a guy I'm kind of looking at of someone who could really kind of take that next leap this next season with how much consistency he's been having, and easily Alex Van de Sant. I mean, we saw how pretty much deadly he's been this season, and if not for a few choice moments where he could have gotten a better finish, but just something got a hold of him, he could easily be right up there with the conversation with Milecka here.
I'd also throw Matt Wagner into that conversation also. Started out the season with that victory at Auto Club, and his season has been up and down. If you took some of those races where he found hard luck and, at least put a podium finish in there, I think he'd be a driver that would be up in the conversation as well.
I still say the returning point for Wagner had to be Gateway. I mean, it just seemed like something after Gateway, after that pretty much that DNF when he was up in points, just something changed. It looked like something had changed there.
A couple other drivers have been consistent as well here during the second half of the season. Jim Herrick has really turned things up, as has Covey Moore. Both of these drivers have been really consistent in the last couple of weeks, both struggling a little bit here today. Nice song. Gets it going again. Last car, one lap down in 11th place, but, Jim Herrick, he's been very consistent. Right now in the 4th position, looking for another top 5 finish. Covey Moore looks like he will finish 7th place, last car on the lead lap, potentially. I think he might be the driver just up ahead of the race leader here, trying to stay on the lead lap as we're closing in on 2 laps to go.
Looks like a little bit of a battle between Nick DeGroot and Craig Forsyth's kind of heating up here. It looks like Forsyth's really trying to push the issue on DeGroot. Managed to lock it up. DeGroot lost it.
Yeah, almost looped it around. You saw those rear tires spin, the backhand snap around, and could definitely have been because of the pressure of Craig Forsyth. Might have been looking out the rearview mirrors there than out the windshield, and Forsyth sneak on by for the 5th position.
I'll be perfectly honest. It probably was DeGroot saw that smoke in his rearview mirror, and he was looking there saying, oh my God, he's going to hit me? And kind of gave him a little bit enough of a concern where he got off his line, and that easily kind of let Craig Forsyth just pull right along.
So Forsyth now up into the top 5 and trying to open up the gap between himself and Nick DeGroot. Both these drivers in this spirited battle for 5th. Only one push to pass left for each one of them. As we are now at 2 laps to go. Just checking in on the gap between Milecka III and Van de Sant. It is now down to 4.6 seconds. But again, unless the 91 makes a mistake, it's pretty much en route to his 10th victory on the season and the continuation of solidifying the championship here this season. As Eric Shouse, good performance for him here today in the podium position of 3rd. He holds that 6 seconds over Jim Herrick.
Wonder if Milecka wins the rest of the season, we can try and convince HyperX to get him a championship belt.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't put it past the possibility of him being able to do that, but then I look at the tracks that we're going to as the white flag's in the air. You got Pocono next week, which I think is going to come down to fuel strategy. You've got Michigan the following week. We saw how crazy the season opening 2-mile track of Auto Club was. And then you've got, of course, the Indianapolis 500 that everybody wants to win. And if last season's 500 was anything to go by, drivers are going to be willing to make the riskiest moves possible. I mean, Forsyth, when he won the Indy 500, he won it because he went 4 wide up the middle down the front straightaway.
I mean, you got to think of, hey, maybe I wasn't able to get the championship this season. Maybe I haven't had that great of a season. But the Indy 500 is a pretty prestigious race, and that's a good amount of bragging rights to carry into the next season where you'll get your name mentioned a few times. So a lot of drivers have that circled on their track saying, or circled on their calendar saying, hey, this is somewhere I can win.
Oh, absolutely. No doubt about it. And then, of course, as you mentioned as well, they've got the duo, if you will, the Indy 500 as well as the Coke 600. So a bit of a double header there. So 2 events that drivers can have circled on their calendar at the end of the season. But Robert Milecka III traversing through the final portions here at Silverstone. debut race on the schedule, and Maleska III with the slip-up of Van de Sant's going to capitalize. He ran second most of the day, but he's going to be in the most important position at the end of the day. Coming down through the final couple of corners, Robert Maleska III is a double-digit winner in the IndyCar Series here at Dark Horse. 10th win on the year. He's going to take the checkered flag here tonight in the final road course stop of the season.
And that's a painful way to lose one, but I mean, definitely a good recovery by Van de Sant to come in second. Looks like the group might have something for Forsyth here.
He's within striking distance, perhaps, off the final turn. I think he just used his last push to pass, but it's not going to quite be enough. Forsyth's going to get that final top 5 position behind Jim Herrick, Eric Shouse, Van de Sant, and race winner Robert Maleska III. But I'm just going to go out there and give a kudos to every single driver in the field that finished this thing out, because we saw the struggles that drivers had early on, but they stick it out and at least complete all the laps.
Realistically, really good recovery for both Forsyth and Covey here. I mean again, Covey kind of kicked off at lap 1 first straightaway incident with him spinning around. Forsyth followed him in. I mean, definitely great recoveries for those two.
Yeah, didn't even make it 200 feet before meeting up with an incident at the start of this race. So you're absolutely right. Great recovery for them. And it goes back to what I said. Early issues, you can overcome them. Late issues, like we saw happen to Van de Sant, you don't really have enough time to be able to mount a comeback in that situation. So Van de Sant, I believe this is his 3rd runner-up finish at a road course this season as well. The only place that he didn't finish runner-up was, of course, his win back at Watkins Glen. So as Maleska's going to come around and get to burn it down for the 10th time this season, let's take a look here at the full official finishing results from tonight's event. I believe everyone has now crossed the start-finish line to make it official, and a couple of notable drivers that we would have expected up there inside of the top 5. The one that kind of jumps out to me, Matt Wagner. I mean, he was up in the podium back at COTA. He was up in the podium back at Road America. But 8th place here tonight, 1 lap down.
It's actually really respectable. Obviously, Gail Brooks. Nice to see him finish without being on a wrecker or a tow truck.
Commentator's curse didn't strike him tonight. Other drivers that at least finished out this race: Jeff Hysong, 11th, Jimmy Drine in 12th, Todd Schneider in 13th, Gary Corley DNF'd the race early, finished in 14th. Nicholas Winook and Jim Brooks spent pretty much the entirety of this race, with the exception of maybe the first 4 laps, on pit lane, and will finish in 15th and 16th position, respectively. Only 16 drivers in the field here tonight. Question is now, as we head back to a speedway next week at Pocono, I expect that the car count is probably going to pick up again. We expected that probably not the entire full field was going to show up here tonight with the unknown, so to speak, of Silverstone, but for these drivers that did show up, you got to wonder what their thoughts are about this racetrack, because some of them might have been taking to it for the very first time.
I'm going to tell you, I definitely think that Van de Sant may have some very choice words about this racetrack.
Well, we'll get to find out just exactly what his opinion of this racetrack is, as we'll be talking with him momentarily. We're going to talk with our top 3 finishers here tonight, and let's kick things off with a driver that struggled the last time out at Watkins Glen after a fuel miscalculation, but here tonight, solid podium finish here at Silverstone. Let's talk with the driver of the 72, Eric Shouse. Eric, it's Matt and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Hey, Seth, how are you?
Doing good, man. I mean, we were talking about the preparedness of drivers coming into Silverstone here tonight. Some drivers may be taking to it for the very first time. How was it for you out there? Because it looked like a lot of drivers, no matter where they were running the field, had something that Silverstone brought to the table they might not have been expecting.
Yeah, Silverstone is my first time on the track. Well, not on the track itself, but first time racing it. And I really like this track. I was nowhere near as fast as those guys up front, so I wasn't even going to try. But yeah, a little bit of practice, and I felt like I did all right.
somebody, it's always nice to see you finish the road course race. Definitely not out of fuel and not in mud at all. Definitely have to say I love that. But I'm going to turn the attention to next week. Obviously, I personally kind of have you pegged to maybe break through at Pocono. Am I right or am I wrong on that one?
I don't want to jinx myself, but
have a little bit of confidence, man.
I have had good luck at Pocono before. I'll say that. I tend to run pretty well there, but I'm also against some pretty steep competition, so we'll have to see.
Eric, obviously, I'm going to look a little bit further ahead of Pocono. We've got Michigan coming up. Of course, we know what kind of a wild card race it was at the season opener at Auto Club. Michigan, the sister track there. And, Matt was bringing up as well, everybody wants to win that Indianapolis 500 at the end of the season. And you ran really well there in last year's Indy 500. So, going down that home stretch there with these tracks coming up, which one stands out to you that you think is going to be the one that drivers might have to keep their heads on a swivel where everybody's going to be up there with a shot of winning?
Well, I think it's Indy. It's anybody's game in Indy. You never know. The wrecks happen at random times and take out a big chunk of the field. So it could be anybody's game there. And hopefully just going to keep it clean on that track.
All right, well, Eric, a tremendous run for you here tonight. We didn't really get to highlight you nearly as much as I think we should have with how good you were running, just based on the fact you held down that third position for most of this race. But congratulations on a solid performance here tonight. We're going to give the opportunity now for some thank you sponsors and shout-outs.
Yeah, thanks, guys. That was my goal, stay in third, and that's what I did. So I'm happy with that. Thanks to you guys for the broadcast. I always enjoy going back and watching these things. Thanks to my wife, who's usually watching and supporting. Thanks to Dark Horse for putting on the league. Thanks to HyperX for sponsoring. And thanks to my teammates out there that were, it's always fun to run with those guys and have somebody in the Discord to talk with.
Well, Eric Shouse going to pick up his 5th top 5 on the season, 3rd place here tonight at Silverstone. Congratulations, Eric, and best of luck to you next week at the Tricky Triangle of Pocono.
Thanks.
If my calculations are correct, Shouse is going to pick up 2 spots in the standings after tonight, moving from 6th up to 4th, heading into Pocono next week. Let's talk with the driver that led a good portion of this race, but had that one slip-up that might have cost him the race win. Let's talk with 2nd place finisher Alex Van de Sant. Hey, Alex, it's Matt and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
I gotcha.
Man, I can only imagine what is going through your mind right now. Had the strongest car of the day and had that one little slip up there near the closing stages of this race. First off, got to ask, we caught the tail end of that spin, but what was it that led to that car snapping out from underneath you?
It was just a mistake. I think what contributed to it, I was moving the brake bias forward on the outlaps, and I'd forgotten to move it back for that last stint. So I had a bit more understeer through that corner where it's really important to trail brake and use the brake to rotate the car. And so I just had a bit more gas out of the corner than I needed and spun it around.
Definitely, I kind of have to say that that's a heartbreak. But
Yeah.
That's kind of an understatement of the century, but I'm going to hopefully put it to a little bit of lighter topic. Let's go ahead and look at next week. Now, Pocono is kind of that track where it combines a little bit of road course with a little bit of super speedway. How you looking there?
Yeah, I've had mixed luck at Pocono. I've won 1 or 2 league races there, and I've binned it in others. So I've never run it in this car, so I really don't know what to expect with that. It'll definitely be packier than the IR18 races, which could make it interesting, maybe easier to pass. But yeah, we'll see. I'll have to get a lot of practice in.
Well, Alex, take nothing away from the performance you had here tonight. I know you wanted to pick up this victory, but still, strong race car. You bring it home in the 2nd position. Your numbers at road courses this season have been absolutely incredible. Of course, that win at Watkins Glen earlier on in the season as well. So congratulations on a great performance overall, nonetheless. We're now going to give the opportunity for some thank you sponsors and shout-outs.
Yeah, thanks. Big shout out as always to Team LMCgear.com. It was a great team result too. Craig and Jim in the top 5. So that's good team points. And then as well as Happy Trails Chili Company. Yeah.
Well, that's Alex Van Desant, second place here tonight at Silverstone in the final road course race of the season. And best of luck to you, Alex, as well, down the home stretch here, Pocono, Michigan. Of course, maybe be able to get that big one there, the Indianapolis 500 at season's end.
Yeah, we'll see. Looking forward to it.
And now let's see if we can go down to Victory Lane. No stranger to Victory Lane. He's there for the 10th time this season. Let's talk with Robert Maleska III. Hey, Robert, it's Matt and Seth up here in the FRN booth. You got us?
Yeah, I got you guys.
Wow. 3 wins at road courses this season. The only other road course that you didn't win at, you've ended up finishing second place. Your numbers here at road courses have been incredible. Your numbers everywhere have been incredible. But we just talked with Van Desant after he spun from the race lead. You're running in second place. All of a sudden, you see the smoke, you see the leader, and you're going by him to take the top position. What were the thoughts going through your mind at that time?
Yeah, I mean, first I have to, shout out Alex. He's one hell of a driver. He's insanely quick on these road courses, and he keeps pushing me to get better and better here. Something I'm not great at, but I just instantly I just felt bad for Alex because you guys know, like I've won a lot. I don't need these wins, and if I'm gonna race someone for the win, I want it to be clean and not have anything kind of ruin the race. So part of me wanted to let up a bit and almost let Alex catch up so he has a shot, because I think all race we were dead even on pace. It seemed like the track slowed down from practice by about half a second. But, yeah, that's all I can really say right now.
So obviously, Robert, I'm kind of in that personal opinion that you really should go out and get a lottery ticket tonight, because that was definitely a lot of luck that kind of came in. But let me go ahead and I'll ask the same question I've been asking everyone, which is looking at next week. Since next week kind of has Pocono, nice to combine that kind of that road course feel with that super speedway racing. How are you looking there?
I tend to enjoy Pocono a lot. It's another, multi-groove racetrack that can have some very good racing. So I'm hoping, we can put on a show there and it's incident free.
Got one quick question here, Robert, that I noticed back, I think it was on lap 32. 3 laps away from the conclusion of this race, you laid down your fastest lap of the race. Was it just that you were in a comfort zone there and just being able to concentrate on hitting your marks, or were you in a mentality of, hey, there's a chance that maybe, just maybe, this 317 might reel me in here before this race is over. I got to make sure that I lay down some Q laps, keep him at bay.
Nah, I think I'm not gonna speak for Alex, but I think we were both running at about 95%. Because if we were at 100% that whole race, we would probably spin once or twice. And I think that whole race, I was just kind of taking it easy. And then I tried to go for a bit quicker lap because I wanted the fastest lap of the race. And I guess I got it.
Well, Robert, we keep talking about the accolades that you have racked up here this season. Double-digit wins now with your 10th trip to Victory Lane. You continue to grow that points lead. You're a lock for the championship, and definitely looking like we're going to be talking about you quite a bit when we get to the upcoming races of Pocono, Michigan. Of course, that Indy 500 main event at the end of the season as well. Congratulations on yet another victory here tonight. We're now going to give the opportunity for some thank you sponsors and shout-outs.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks to FRN, you guys for announcing, HyperX for sponsoring the series. And, let's see if we can have a good, clean race at Pocono, because I think it's going to be pretty much a pack race. So we'll see how that goes.
That's Robert Maleska III. He goes 3 for 4 at road courses this season and trips to Victory Lane. His latest here tonight at Silverstone. Congratulations, Robert.
Thanks, boys.
Final road course stop of the season in the books. 2 different drivers have been to Victory Lane at the road courses, but Matt, from here on out, it's big tracks. We got Pocono, we got Michigan, we got Indianapolis, and as Robert pointed out next week, a tricky triangle with pack racing. That's going to be interesting. 3 different corners, all entirely different.
Yeah, realistically, I'm hearing all those tracks that you just mentioned. I'm thinking, man, these are a lot of big packs. And I'm thinking, damn, we're going to be playing high-speed pinball here.
Absolutely. It's going to be interesting to see if maybe, just maybe, some of those drivers that we talked about that are still looking for their first trip to victory lane, but have definitely been up in the conversation, especially at the speedways, if they can maybe be able to get a last-minute trip to victory lane coming down to the very end of this schedule. But it's been a great one here tonight at Silverstone. First time I've ever observed or broadcasted a race from here. It was definitely a unique experience for me. But Matt, appreciate you joining me in the booth tonight.
As always, thanks for having me.
Thanks to everyone that tuned in this evening. Hope you guys enjoyed our coverage. Be sure to tune in tomorrow night. We've got the Rolling Thunder Gaming All-Star Race, Super Speedway style. It's the open qualifying race, actually, to qualify into the open or into the All-Star Race next Thursday night. And then we've got Backfire that we're going to be bringing you action from Texas Motor Speedway on Friday evening. So a lot on tap to close out the week here on FRN. For Matthew Rodriguez, I'm Seth Cole. Thanks for tuning in here tonight. You've been watching another broadcast courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.